On April 15, 1912, the RMS Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank, taking over 1,500 lives with it. The disaster shocked the world and exposed a terrifying truth. Ships were crossing the ocean blind, with no way to know where deadly icebergs lurked in their path. But what most people don't know is that within weeks of the tragedy, the United States government launched a secret mission that continues to this day. For over a century, an elite group of Coast Guard warriors has patrolled the most dangerous waters on Earth, hunting icebergs before they can kill again. They are America's Ice Patrol, and they have never lost a single ship to an iceberg since they began their watch. This is their untold story. In this video, you'll discover how the Coast Guard's International Ice Patrol was born from tragedy, how these maritime warriors track and predict iceberg movements using cutting-edge technology, the dangerous missions they undertake in some of the harshest conditions on the planet, and why their century-long vigil remains absolutely critical today. Using Coast Guard archives, first-hand accounts from Ice Patrol crews, and declassified mission reports, we're revealing the complete story of America's most persistent military mission. To understand why the Ice Patrol exists, we need to go back to that terrible night in April 1912. The Titanic was the largest and most luxurious ship ever built, considered unsinkable by its designers. But as it steamed through the frigid North Atlantic at nearly full speed, it entered an area known as Iceberg Alley, a stretch of ocean where massive icebergs drift south from Greenland into the busy shipping lanes between North America and Europe. The ship's lookout spotted the iceberg too late. The collision ripped open the hull, and within 2 hours and 40 minutes, the Titanic disappeared beneath the waves. The disaster revealed a fundamental problem. Ships had no reliable way to know where icebergs were. Captains relied on visual sightings, radio warnings from other ships, and luck. But icebergs are nearly invisible at night or in fog. They drift unpredictably with currents and winds. And in the early 1900s, hundreds of them floated through the North Atlantic shipping lanes every spring and summer. The Titanic wasn't the first ship lost to an iceberg, but its high-profile sinking, the massive loss of life, and the prominence of its passengers made it impossible to ignore the danger any longer. Within months, maritime nations gathered for the International Conference on Safety of Life at Sea in London. 13 countries, including the United States, agreed to establish an iceberg monitoring and warning service. But someone had to actually do the work, and the United States volunteered. In 1913, just 1 year after the Titanic sank, the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service, which would soon become the Coast Guard, launched the first International Ice Patrol. The mission was deceptively simple. Find every iceberg in the North Atlantic shipping lanes, track their movements, and warn ships before they entered danger zones. But executing that mission proved extraordinarily difficult. The patrol area covers hundreds of thousands of square miles of open ocean. Icebergs can be massive, the size of buildings, or small and deadly, lurking just below the surface. Weather in the North Atlantic is notoriously brutal with fog, storms, and freezing temperatures. And in the early years, the Ice Patrol had primitive technology, just ships, lookouts with binoculars, and basic navigation equipment. The first patrol ships were cutters designed for coastal work, not extended ocean operations. Crews would sail into Iceberg Alley during the peak danger months from February through July and spend weeks at sea searching for ice. When they spotted an iceberg, they recorded its position, estimated its size and drift, and radioed warnings to nearby ships. It was tedious, dangerous work. Crew members endured constant cold, rough seas, and the very real possibility of hitting an iceberg themselves while hunting for others. But the Ice Patrol learned quickly. They discovered that icebergs follow predictable patterns based on ocean currents, particularly the Labrador Current that flows south along the coast of Newfoundland. They learned to predict where icebergs would drift by studying water temperatures, current speeds, and wind patterns. They developed mathematical models to forecast iceberg movements days in advance. And most importantly, they established a track record of success. Ships that heeded Ice Patrol warnings avoided icebergs. Ships that ignored them sometimes didn't. The Ice Patrol faced its first major test during World War I. German U-boats prowled the Atlantic, and Ice Patrol ships became vulnerable targets. The mission continued, but with added danger. Crews had to watch for icebergs and submarines simultaneously. Some patrols were suspended when the risk became too great. But the Coast Guard maintained the mission as much as possible because icebergs didn't care about the war, and merchant ships still needed protection. After the war, the Ice Patrol expanded and modernized. In the 1920s and 1930s, they began using aircraft for reconnaissance. Planes could cover far more ocean than ships and spot icebergs from the air much more effectively. The Coast Guard acquired specialized ice patrol cutters built to withstand North Atlantic conditions. They established weather stations in Greenland and Labrador to better understand the conditions that create and calve icebergs. And they developed increasingly sophisticated tracking methods. World War II brought the ice patrol's greatest challenge. The Battle of the Atlantic raged, with German submarines sinking Allied merchant ships by the hundreds. The ice patrol mission became even more critical because convoys carrying troops and supplies to Europe had to cross Iceberg Alley. The Coast Guard expanded patrol operations, flying more reconnaissance flights and deploying additional ships despite the U-boat threat. Ice patrol aircraft sometimes spotted German submarines while searching for icebergs, providing valuable intelligence to Allied forces. The mission had become part of the larger war effort. One of the most remarkable aspects of the ice patrol is its record. Since 1913, not a single ship that heeded ice patrol warnings has been lost to an iceberg collision. Think about that. Over a century of operations, millions of ships crossing the North Atlantic, and zero losses among those following the warnings. It's an unprecedented safety record in maritime history and a testament to the skill, dedication, and expertise of generations of Coast Guard ice warriors. But how exactly does the ice patrol work today? The mission has evolved dramatically with technology, but the core challenge remains the same. Every year, thousands of icebergs break off from Greenland's glaciers and drift south into shipping lanes. The ice patrol must find them, track them, and warn mariners. Modern operations combine ships, aircraft, satellites, computer modeling, and oceanographic data to create a comprehensive iceberg detection and tracking system. During patrol season, Coast Guard HC-130 Hercules aircraft fly regular reconnaissance missions over the patrol area. Crew members use radar, forward-looking infrared sensors, and visual observation to locate icebergs. When they spot one, they record its exact position using GPS, estimate its size and shape, and photograph it for analysis. This data gets transmitted to Ice Patrol headquarters, where analysts enter it into sophisticated computer models. These models are extraordinary pieces of software. They incorporate real-time data on ocean currents, water temperatures, wind speeds, and iceberg characteristics to predict where each iceberg will drift over the coming days and weeks. The models account for the fact that 90% of an iceberg is underwater, so its drift is primarily controlled by ocean currents rather than wind. They factor in how icebergs melt and break apart as they move south into warmer water, and they calculate probability zones where icebergs are likely to be found. The Ice Patrol issues two main products to mariners. The first is the iceberg limit, a boundary line updated twice daily that marks the southern and eastern extent of known iceberg danger. Ships can safely travel south and east of this line. The second is detailed iceberg position reports for individual bergs, especially large or dangerous ones. These reports are broadcast via radio, satellite, and internet to ships worldwide and are absolutely free. Any vessel can access Ice Patrol warnings at no cost because the mission's purpose is saving lives, not making money. Modern Ice Patrol crews face different dangers than their predecessors, but the work remains challenging. Flying low over the North Atlantic in all weather conditions is inherently risky. Aircraft can encounter sudden storms, severe turbulence, and icing conditions. Crew members spend hours staring at ocean surfaces looking for the telltale white of ice among waves and whitecaps. It requires intense concentration and expertise because missing a single iceberg could be fatal for a ship. The Ice Patrol also conducts oceanographic research. They deploy scientific instruments to measure water temperature, salinity, and current speeds. They study how climate change is affecting iceberg production and drift patterns. They've observed that warming temperatures are actually increasing the number of icebergs in some years because glaciers are calving more frequently. This makes the mission more important than ever, not less. One of the most fascinating aspects of modern Ice Patrol operations is their use of technology that would seem like science fiction to the original 1913 crews. Satellite imagery from multiple sources helps identify large icebergs. Autonomous underwater vehicles can map iceberg keels below the surface. Artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms help analysts predict iceberg behavior with increasing accuracy. And international cooperation means data is shared between countries, creating a global iceberg awareness network. But technology hasn't replaced human expertise. Ice Patrol crews develop an almost intuitive understanding of how icebergs behave. Experienced observers can estimate an iceberg's underwater mass by its above-water appearance. They can predict drift patterns by reading ocean conditions. They know which icebergs are likely to roll, break apart, or persist for months. This combination of cutting-edge technology and hard-won human knowledge makes the Ice Patrol uniquely effective. The mission continues year-round, though intensity varies by season. Peak iceberg season runs from February through July when Greenland's glaciers calve most actively and ocean currents push ice south. During these months, the Ice Patrol operates continuously with near-daily flights and constant monitoring. In off-season months, the crew analyzes data, maintains equipment, trains new personnel, and prepares for the next patrol season. Over the past century, the Ice Patrol has adapted to dramatic changes in maritime commerce. In 1913, they were protecting passenger liners and cargo steamers. Today, they protect container ships, tankers, cruise ships, fishing vessels, and research ships. The volume of North Atlantic shipping has increased exponentially, meaning more vessels depend on Ice Patrol warnings, and the consequences of an iceberg collision have grown more severe. A modern tanker carrying oil or liquefied natural gas hitting an iceberg could create an environmental catastrophe. The Ice Patrol has also responded to changing iceberg patterns linked to climate change. Some years see unusually high iceberg counts with over 1,000 entering the shipping lanes. Other years see far fewer. The southernmost extent of iceberg drift has varied significantly. The Ice Patrol tracks these changes and adjusts operations accordingly, ensuring ships receive accurate, timely warnings regardless of conditions. What makes the Ice Patrol truly remarkable is its longevity and consistency. This is the longest continuously operating military mission in U.S. history focused on a single purpose. For over 100 years, through 2 world wars, the Cold War, economic depressions, and dramatic technological change, the Coast Guard has maintained its vigil over the North Atlantic. Generations of ice warriors have carried out this mission with quiet professionalism, rarely seeking recognition, simply doing the work because it needs to be done. The Titanic disaster was a tragedy that changed maritime history. But from that tragedy came something positive, a commitment to never let it happen again. The International Ice Patrol is the living legacy of everyone who died that night. Every ship that safely crosses the North Atlantic, every crew that returns home, every passenger who arrives safely at their destination, they all benefit from a mission born from catastrophe and sustained by dedication. The next time you hear about a ship crossing the Atlantic, remember the Ice Patrol. Remember the Coast Guard crews flying through storms to find icebergs. Remember the analysts predicting drift patterns with mathematical precision. Remember the technology and expertise focused on a single goal, keeping mariners safe from the same fate that befell the Titanic. They are America's secret ice ship warriors, and for over a century, they've made sure that no ship ever has to experience what the Titanic did. That's a legacy worth celebrating.